Hi everybody, it's Mark at the Hall of Flame Museum of Firefighting, and I am up here on one of our favorite pieces here in the Hall of Flame, which is a steam fire engine from 1904, built in Cincinnati, Ohio, and it did its time in Reno, Nevada. And I am up here because we're going to do a little story time today, and today's story features, I'm pretty sure, a cousin of this fine piece right here, this fine steamer. And his name is Hercules. Hercules the steamer. So, I want you to check out this story. Hercules, the story of an old-fashioned fire engine by Hardy Ramatke. This is the story of Hercules, a famous fire engine. When your grandfather was young, he and his friends thought that Hercules was one of the finest fire engines ever built. Then, nobody had ever heard of a fire truck. It wasn't so long ago either. Today, Hercules is in a museum. Had it not been for a wonderful act of courage and a little luck, he never would have won such a fine place. This is how it happened. The day Hercules came from the factory, the whole town turned out, and the mayor made a long speech and proudly referred to Hercules as the most modern, the most up-to-date fire engine in the world. It was a proud day for Hercules. His brass gleamed, his safety valve danced, and the quivering needle on the steam gauge showed how strong he was. Hercules was drawn by 3 horses, one black, one white, and one dapple gray. And the people of the town presented him with a mascot, a spotted coach dog, to run with him to the fires. Hercules had a crew of 3, Hokey, Pokey, and Smokey. Hokey was the fireman. He kept steam up in the big boiler. Pokey was engineer. He watched the gauges and connected the hose to hydrants. And Smokey sat on the front seat and drove the horses. They made a great team. People used to hang around the firehouse for hours on end, on the chance an alarm might ring. It was exciting to see the horses leap toward their harness when the gong struck. It was even more exciting to see them in full flight through the town. And it was most exciting of all to see how quickly they put out a fire. One blast of water from Hercules' hose, and it was all over. Anyhow, that's how it was in the beginning. The trouble was that time was passing and new things were being invented. There was a strange, noisy vehicle, the automobile. People called it a horseless carriage. It was almost too much for the horses. Hokey didn't like the look of this at all. First thing you know, he said, they'll be putting motors in fire engines. And when they do that, Hercules and all of us are done for. But Smokey and Pokey said he was plumb crazy. Smokey jeered, we'll stick by Hercules and our horses. At least with them, we'll always get to the fire. This was true. But Smokey, in his pride and affection, had overlooked the simple fact that with a fire engine, what counts above everything else is getting to the fire first. For there came a day when Hercules, though he rolled as fast as ever, arrived too late. The fire was out. It had been put out by a new kind of fire engine, an engine that wasn't pulled by horses at all. This newfangled machine chugged under its own power. Already, one of these monsters was coming back from the fire, and at the top of the hill, Hercules met him face to face. The upstart blasted his exhaust in Hercules' face and nearly choked him to death. Life was unbearable after that. The alderman and the mayor solemnly decided that Hercules was obsolete. He was too old, too slow. So they retired him. From then on, nothing seemed to happen. The alarm never sounded. The horses were sold, the black one to a riding academy, the dapple gray to a junk dealer, and the white one to the police force. And Hercules grew old, like a soldier pining for the smell of gunpowder. But Hokey Pokey and Smokey, because they loved the firehouse, stayed on. Wait and see, said Smokey. Someday there's gonna be a fire, the worst fire this city ever saw, and we'll be there with Hercules. There's things that Hercules and horses can do that those trucks can't do. That day came sooner than even Smokey had dared to hope. Their own alarm suddenly sounded. The cobwebs flew in all directions. It's a general alarm, yelled Smokey. The city hall, we got to do something. However, there were no horses to pull Hercules. But he knew what to do. He began to ring his big brass bell. When the old black horse heard that familiar clang, he shot like a bolt from under his gentleman rider and tore to the firehouse. The dapple gray abandoned his junk wagon, and the big white horse just brought his new master right with him. Here they come, yelled Pokey. It was like old times. It was a good thing they started, and before long, they found out why. One after another, all the fire trucks, which weren't so dependable in those days, had come to grief. First they passed hose number 4. Number 4's crew were cranking their heads off, but the engine wouldn't start. We can use that hose, yelled Hokey. They stopped only long enough to pick it up. Then they overtook hook and ladder number 1. Number 1 had blown a tire, then the spare, and the crew were sweating to pump it up. Never mind that, Smokey bellowed. Get aboard with the ladder. Emergency truck number 3 was hopelessly stuck in a muddy ditch. Get aboard, Pokey yelled to the dumbfounded crew, and bring your life net. On the steep hill near the city hall, they heaved past chemical number 2. It just didn't have the power to get up the slope. Hercules could do things that no fire truck could ever hope to do. The bridge was out, but Hercules never stopped. This was the worst fire he had ever seen. The heat was so scorching that Pokey had to unharness the horses and lead them away. If they were to save City Hall, Hercules had to pump water as he had never pumped before. While Hokey fed coal under the boiler, Pokey threw himself on the safety valve, and Hercules pumped until he was blue in the face. Everyone was saved, including the mayor and the aldermen, with no hurt except to their dignity. And that was how Hercules got into the museum. So that's the story of Hercules the steamer. Now, what I'm sitting on up here, like I said, it sure looks to me like it's probably one of Hercules' cousins, but we know it's not Hercules. And you know how we know that? In this very first picture, you see his place in the museum, and you see he's in a museum with a dinosaur. We don't have a dinosaur here at the Hall of Flame. I have often thought over the years that I've been here at the Hall of Flame that if it's possible to make this place any cooler, and I kind of doubt it is, but the one thing that might possibly be able to do that is if we could somehow get a dinosaur in here. But for right now, we don't. But we're still pretty cool. So anyway, that's the story for today. Come back and see us again. Really, really cool to get to hang out with you guys. And remember, Hercules is very courageous.